The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Roby and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
Episode 93 of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Jason Bryant here with you. Head coach Tony Roby going to be joining us back on the show today. The Hokies, since the last time we met, picked up 4 big dual wins, beating Chattanooga, Central Michigan, Binghamton, and Cornell. One of 3 unbeatens left in Division I, coming in ranked number 3 in the country in the most recent NWCA Division I wrestling coaches poll. Number 12, North Carolina, on the horizon here, coming to Castle on Friday. But before we get to that, Coach Roby, 4 big matches since we've talked. Chattanooga before Christmas, the tight one with CMU, and then the weekend trip up to New York. So overall, how do you think your team is wrestling right now?
Felt like we wrestled pretty good this weekend. I think it's like most teams this time of year. I think it's match to match. I think it's guy to guy. I think we have some guys that are doing some really good things for us. I think we got some guys that are somewhat inconsistent. But overall, like where the team's at. I like what I'm seeing from them in the room, most importantly. So it's never going to be perfect as much as you want it to be perfect as a coach. But I feel like for the most part, our guys are going out and they're wrestling hard and they're their effort's really good. So, from that standpoint, I'm pleased with where we're at and how things have developed over the course of the last month as we kind of hit the home stretch of our season here.
One thing we do want to touch on before we get into the heart of those matchups and the Carolina lineup is Brent Moore, not in the lineup, and what's his situation now? We've seen Bryce Andonian. He's in there as a true freshman. Understand that Brent's career is over.
Yeah, Brent has, I don't know how many people know this, but he had a serious neck surgery. It's almost 2 years ago now that he had the surgery, but it was after his freshman season. He got injured that spring, had surgery late that spring, early summer. I can't remember exactly when it was. He was out all year last year, recovering and rehabbing and got back on the mat probably about a year ago, or maybe a little bit less than a year ago. And then made an attempt to come back and, wasn't successful. And the injury that he has is significant and it's certainly limiting for him. So, Brent is no longer going to be with us in terms of competition. He'll obviously still be a part of our program and a part of our team, but he's physically no longer able to compete. So Bryce Andonian is going to be the guy moving forward, and we're excited about Bryce and what he can do. Bryce is a young kid. He just turned 18 in August, so there's going to be some growing pains with him. But we like, the talent that we see from Bryce Andonian is off the charts. He needs to continue to clean up his wrestling and continue to improve in some areas and continue to figure things out. But we're moving forward in that direction at 149.
And just so people understand how this works, Brent's obviously on some scholarship money. When you're an athlete and then you have an injury, what is the situation like with that money? How does that work from an athletic department standpoint and the wrestling program for those who are unfamiliar?
We will request a medical disqualification for Brent, which I think will likely take place, which will allow him to stay on his scholarship that he's on and, continue to work towards graduating from Virginia Tech. I mean, Brent's in his 4th year right now, so he's pretty far along academically. I think he'll probably have 2 more semesters of classes left, plus some summer classes this summer, and should be able to graduate next December. So that's kind of how the process works. Once he gets that medical disqualification, he no longer counts against our 9.9 scholarships. So, it allows us to. It doesn't hurt our equivalency scholarship wise, and it also allows Brent to get what he was promised when he came to Virginia Tech. So, it's about as good as it could work out at this situation.
Still, there's the part of you as a coach that, you hate to see a guy like that with that ability and that talent not be able to compete anymore. In your prior experiences as a coach, whether it be a head coach, assistant coach, how hard do these type of things weigh on a head coach?
Well, you try to let it play out as much as possible to make sure you're making the right decision. And that it's the best thing for the student athlete. And I think we just got to the point with Brent where it was obvious. I think he was just really difficult for him to train on a daily basis. I think that he was in pain. It was affecting him. Wrestling's a brutal sport, and when you have something like that happen to you, and you have to have that invasive of a surgery. When you have discs fused together in your neck, that's not an easy thing to bounce back from. And I give him a lot of credit for, wanting to come back, making an attempt to come back. But at the end of the day, I think is the best thing for Brent and his long-term health as well.
As we talk about competition with the win over Chattanooga, and then Central Michigan gave you guys a go up in Mount Pleasant. I mean, Tom Borelli's teams are always well coached. I mean, was it maybe a New Year's, pardon the expression, hangover that hit you guys, having not been on the mat that long, or was Central Michigan just ready to fight?
Well, Mitch Moore didn't wrestle, so that that affected us obviously. But yeah, I mean, I thought there's matchups come into play a lot this time of year, and how you match up with certain teams. And we didn't maybe match up great with Central Michigan. Two of their worst guys were at 65 and 84, and typically we match up with teams better when they have two better guys at 65 and 84 to go up against McFadden and Bolin. They're strong at heavyweight. They're strong at 25. We had a backup in there at 41. And when 97, they had a guy that's, Stan didn't wrestle great. And when Stan doesn't wrestle great, he's a hard time getting his hand raised. So credit to them. Tom Borelli, I have a lot of respect for him and his program. And I enjoy competing and wrestling against teams, and we schedule teams that we respect the way they do things, and I respect their coaches. So it's part of the reason we went back to Central Michigan. But we knew that they would be ready, and they've had some good results this year. They've had some inconsistent results, but they've got some good wins under their belt as a team. So that's kind of the way it works during the course of the season, especially when you're not healthy.
How about the cardiac arrest that Colin Girardi put everybody through? I mean, you look at the score, and that ended up being really the match that kind of swayed it Virginia Tech's way. If you're looking at how the points go, it's like,
yeah, I mean, Colin pulled one out for sure at the end. It's been a while, but I also felt like we could have won at 25. I felt like we could have won at heavyweight, and we dropped those two matches. So that's, like I said, I mean, you wrestle dual meets, and we're gonna go through a lot of those things through the course of the next 4 weeks here with what we have scheduled and what we have coming up. So you got to find ways to win individual matches, and you got to find ways to win dual meets against quality teams.
Now, instead of the Virginia duels this year, you went up to New York, wrestled Binghamton, wrestled Cornell. Cornell's been on the schedule for a couple of years now. It's developing into a nice little rivalry. And you get that back-to-back weigh-in, too, on a road trip. How much of that is simulation for the postseason, and how much is it changing things up? Because the Virginia duels, in terms of its competition, was not where Tech was looking to go this year. So, overall thoughts on, one, the trip to, upstate New York, and two, the outcomes.
Yeah, I like the fact that we had to weigh in 2 days in a row. You get it. There's a 1 pound allowance on the second day of that. We won't see it. We've only seen that one other time this year in Las Vegas. We won't see that again until the NCAA tournament. We will weigh in, next weekend we're at UVA in Old Dominion, but that's a Friday, Sunday. So back-to-back weigh-ins, I think it's critical to do that and experience that and have your guys go through that process, and especially as many young guys that we have in our program right now, to get an idea of what their routine needs to be when they have to make weight 2 days in a row. So that definitely played into our thinking when we scheduled that. Also some of it was geography. We owed Cornell a match, and we were going up there, and we wanted to hit Binghamton and get another dual meets, get them back to Blacksburg next year and allow us another home dual meet. But it was a good trip overall. Obviously, Binghamton, they're dinged up. We were looking forward to a rematch at 184. Unfortunately, he's banged up and didn't weigh in and wasn't able to wrestle. They're pretty good at 141. For whatever reason, he didn't weigh in and wrestle as well. So wasn't quite what we expected. I think we saw some backups in that match, which was unfortunate, but, it is what it is. You've got to wrestle the guys they throw out there, and, followed that up the following day at Cornell, and, had some pretty good things happen, had some things happen that maybe, 174 felt like we let one get away from us there, got thrown early and put to our back, and Cody Hughes had to fight like crazy not to get pinned, and wasn't able to come back in that match. So, but Cornell does a good job. I mean, they're, obviously they've got a lot of guys out of their lineup this year, Olympic redshirting, but, there's a reason they've had the success they've had. They're a well-coached team, a well-coached program, and, they're good from top to bottom. So we knew they would present some challenges for us, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah, speaking of Cody Hughes, his opponent coming off an Olympic red shirt, Andrew Berryessa, Greco-Roman junior world silver medalist a couple years ago, and he announced it on social media. And then when you said get thrown, I had to go back and look. Berryessa, Greco guy. Yeah,
he definitely is, and we knew that going in. And Cody, you got to avoid certain positions against certain guys, and Cody was unable to do that. To the Cornell guy's credit, he forced those positions. But again, Cody's got to stay where he's good and where he likes to wrestle. And if you're going to wrestle a guy that's a big Greco guy, you can't let him tie you up. You can't let him get a hold of you. You've got to try to get to his legs and stay on his legs. And Cody was not successful doing that, especially early on in the match.
All right, 149 pounds. We had talked about it earlier, but Bryce Andonian in the lineup now as the starter. Adjustments have to be made from you as a coaching staff on how to get him ready for matches, and then he as a wrestler has to adjust from 2-hour open tournament weigh-ins to 1-hour weigh-ins, traveling with the team, and those are all sorts of variables that play a role in performance.
Yeah, and I think, for Bryce, a lot of his challenges are with doing a lot of the little things right. And making sure that he feels good when he steps on the mat. And that's his nutrition, that's his preparation, that's his rest, that's his, mental focus and mental preparation leading into matches. And a lot of that's part of being a young guy. Bryce turned 18 years old not too long ago. He's got a lot of work to do for sure. But those are the adjustments that we like to make during the course of the season. And now that he's been in the lineup and we've been able to see him compete and consistently be able to coach him, I think that's something that we continue to help him with. And I think we'll hopefully see some improvement in those areas.
Now, as we move forward, the big one coming in to Castle Coliseum on Friday, 7 p.m., Student Appreciation Night. First thing we're going to do out there is Hokies Wrestling, the Twitter account, told everybody from Hokie Nation to go get the Hokie Sports app. Then you select the Hokie lights and be ready to load it after the national anthem. They're planning this thing. We did it at the NCAA Championships a couple years ago there's like a sonic sound that they make, the lights flash and all sorts of stuff. So that's going to be coming to Castle Coliseum, but also coming to Castle Coliseum, the number 12 Tar Heels at the University of North Carolina. They're 8-1, their lineup. Getting back to where Coleman Scott wants it, number 3, Virginia Tech. This is 8-0 versus 8-1 in the ACC. 4 of the ACC's 6 teams are ranked in the top 12 for the first time in history. And looking at it, I've got circle of all the toss-up matches here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ranked wrestlers from Virginia Tech on the flow rankings, 5 for Carolina. They meet up at 3 weights. 6 swing bouts in my estimation. This one is going to be exciting for the fans and maybe nerve-wracking as a coach.
I think it's going to be an entertaining dual meet. There's no question about it. And it's if you're an ACC wrestling fan right now, there's a lot of reason to be excited about watching a lot of these dual meets, especially this season and how this year plays out. It's actually going to be the first wrestling match ever broadcasted on the ACC network. So we're honored and excited to be a part of that. So, that's a big deal. We need to make sure that we have all the Hokies come out and support us. We want to make sure that we look good on live television and we represent well. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. But as far as the wrestling is concerned, man, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's you look up and down that lineup and you want to try to figure out what the score is going to be. Good luck. There's going to be a lot of really, really tight matches throughout the course of this match. I mean, I don't expect very many matches to be blowouts. So it's going to be who can win those tight bouts and who can find a way to win those tough situations, and winning those close matches is what this match is going to come down to. But like you mentioned, 25, 33, 41, 57, 74, 97. All those matches on paper are really, really tight. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, starting down low, Joey Prado ranked number 12 by Flow Wrestling. Going to have Joey Melendez, who's coming back now. He's been wrestling up at 33, but as Jaime Hernandez is back on the lineup at 133, Melendez is going to slide back down. Dangerous guy. A lot of hype coming in around these two guys at 25 and 33 on the Carolina side. They're both not ranked, and you got two Virginia guys facing off. So, starting the tone, if you start at 25, it's going to be 12 Prada, 13 Girardi, kind of trying to set the tone for you.
And two huge matches. We've got two guys at Virginia Tech. They're Virginia guys that probably weren't as highly touted as those two guys coming out of high school, Melendez and Hernandez. I believe they're both Illinois guys. I think if you look at the season so far, what's transpired, maybe we're slight favorites in those matches, I guess. I don't know. I don't think that means a whole heck of a lot come this point in the season. There's a lot of variables that play into things. So, again, we're going to have to be on our A game. Those guys are going to have to go out and find ways to score points. And, we got to get our hands raised at 25 and 33 critical matches.
And when it comes to the toss, also, this is the only match for you guys this weekend, so you don't have to worry about coming down and getting your weight down for a Sunday match. So that's a benefit. But having it at home, and then again, you've got Melendez coming down back to 25. So when we get to that coin toss, is this something you guys want to win the toss and pick the starting weight?
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Trying to get some insight there, but all right. So now we get into one of those, and of course, I've got those circle to swing matches. And Mitch Moore, he's a home run hitter, as we saw at the mound on the mat. No pun intended. Okay, plenty of pun intended there. Zach Sherman, who wrestled really well at the Midlands, he's ranked number 11th by Flow Wrestling. Mitch just on the outside of the rankings, but again, dangerous draw. You circle this one, and looking at all the factors that come into Mitch being at home, he likes when the lights are on, but also we just talked about Brent not being in the lineup with him. And, what goes through Mitch Moore's head this week? How are you going to keep him even keel? Because he's going to be fired up for this.
Oh, I think that's a good thing. I know Mitch will be excited to compete. Sherman's having a great season so far. He's definitely made some gains throughout the. I think he redshirted last year and has definitely made some gains. Has moved up a weight class. So it'll be an interesting match. It's a conflict of styles for sure. Sherman, he's likes to wrestle from the outside, and he darts in and he can attack the legs well. And Mitch is obviously wants to get his hands on you and get a hold of you and then pull you down into that front headlock position. So, again, that's a tough match to predict what the outcome is going to be, and it's going to add to the excitement of that dual meet. But I think Mitch will be ready to go. I just saw him today in the elevator. Today is our day off, so he was getting a little bit of rehab and recovery in, and he's fired up to go this weekend.
And talk about predictions. By the way, WrestleStat has this one 22-11 in favor of Virginia Tech, which I have to talk to them about their algorithm. Anyway, moving through, we got 149 pounds. The aforementioned Bryce Andonian, he snuck into Flo's rankings at 23 this week. His opponent, he's gonna have a little bit more of a tougher order, so to speak, with number 2 Austin O'Connor. Finished second at the Midlands. Was out most of the early part of the year with, I believe, a broken arm. But this one, trial by fire. Mr. Andonian, welcome to the big time. So what's going to happen here?
Well, first off, he's got to go out with the right kind of mindset. And, you can't go out there worrying about what this guy's ranked or what he placed or anything like that. Bryce's focus has got to be on himself and making sure that he's mentally and physically prepared to do battle and to wrestle for 7 minutes, because O'Connor's going to make you wrestle for 7 minutes. Bryce, I think, can certainly go out and score points. And he's capable of scoring some takedowns and doing some really good things. But against O'Connor, he's got to stay in there and battle the whole time, and it's going to be a test for him. But I know where Bryce is mind is at. I know where his belief system is. I know Bryce thinks that he can go out there and he can compete with anybody in the country. So I'm excited to see him step out there in Castle again and wrestle in front of our fans. And I know he's fired up for this opportunity, and he needs a big win. So he's got an opportunity here to get a big win, and you can't go into this match, thinking about not getting majored. And I know that that's not his mindset, and that's not our mindset. So he's going to be in it to win it.
157 pounds, another one that's, on paper looks to be a toss-up. Number 11, BC LaPrade. Number 17, AC Headley. AC has done really well, moving up a couple of weight classes, beat out the incumbent starter. Of course, the name Headley, yeah, it's related. And, another fiery guy. We talk about Mitch being a fiery emotional leader. BC is also a guy that when he's on, he's going to be extremely on, fired up to win, tough defensively. And you've seen AC Headley a lot in the past here with Carolina. So, what's the game plan to beat a guy like AC Headley?
Well, probably I don't anticipate a real high-scoring match. Headley reminds me of Sherman a little bit. He likes to wrestle from the outside. He's going to try to, fake, and he'll attack from the outside, try to typically get to your left leg, but he's got good attacks. He's incredibly elusive, tough to score on, tough to finish on, very flexible when you get to one leg on him. So, BC's got to be able to get to him, get to his legs, and get to his body. And I do feel like we have maybe a size and a strength advantage in this match, but Headley's, he's a seasoned guy, and he knows what he's doing, and he's a talented guy, and he's had a lot of success, and he continues to improve. So again, it's tough to predict. I think it's going to make for another really, really exciting match. And I think all the ones that we've talked about so far are kind of in the same boat in terms of, what possible outcomes can be.
When you came to Virginia Tech years ago, the program was really, there was only one place to go, and that was up. And now you guys are sitting at number 3 in the country, tied for the highest ranking in school history. And you look back, do you ever take a second to look back and be like, man, we got 2 top 12 teams in Castle in the ACC, and it's going to be on TV. Was that ever even a thought in your mind when you first came to Blacksburg?
God, it's been so long ago, but no, probably not. It's pretty wild how much things have changed, and the fact that it's going to be on TV and it's on the ACC network, and how much all the programs have advanced in my time. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty cool to have been a part of this and see it evolve as much as it's evolved over the course of the last 13, 14 years. But there's no question that the ACC is in the best place it's ever been wrestling-wise. And if you look at a lot of the lineups, I was looking at North Carolina's lineup, they've got a bunch of young guys just like we do, and just like Pitt, and just like a lot of the schools in our conference do. So that's an exciting thing. I mean, it's definitely a lot tougher to win ACC titles now than it was 4 or 5 years ago, both individually and as a team. So, but that's what you want. I mean, you want to wrestle in premier conferences against premier teams, and I think it just adds to the level of excitement and the level of interest that it's generating at this point. So there's never been a better time to be a part of, I don't think, Virginia Tech wrestling or wrestling within the ACC.
One of the wrestlers Hokie Nation is excited to see is David McFadden, ranked 3rd in the country. Runner-up at the Midlands over the break, so he had an opportunity to get some extra matches in for the time that he did miss. He'll be wrestling 15th-ranked Kennedy Monday. Of course, that name, you know it by now. We're not going to recite his famous bloodline, but Kennedy Monday is a dangerous out. We saw it at the Nationals a couple years ago when he knocked off Joey LaValle from Missouri in that opening round, and a tough out even for a guy like McFadden. And how's Dave wrestling right now, coming off the Midlands and those other dual meets? And what do you got to watch out for with a guy like Kennedy Monday?
Well, first of all, Monday's very, very talented guy, tremendous athlete. He presents some challenges for sure. I feel good about where Dave's at right now. I felt like he wrestled great the last couple times out. I just feel like offensively he's kind of finding his groove right now. So For Dave, he just needs to go out and attack. And when Dave's attacking and he's creating and there's a lot of wrestling going on, he has a really good chance of scoring a bunch of points and getting his hand raised. When he's standing around and he's collar tying and squeezing on guys and letting guys squeeze on him and slowing him down, that's not where he's effective. So, he's got to wrestle his match, his game, go out there and try to create. And, I think good things will happen for him. But again, Monday is a tremendous, tremendous athlete, and I think it's going to be a fun match to watch.
Coming off the Midlands, what was the overall thoughts about Dave and his performance? Because he got those opportunities to see Wick, to see Marinelli, do you feel comfortable with where he can be come March after finally getting his hands on these guys this season?
Yeah, I think Dave was disappointed in his performance against Marinelli. I think, kind of just what I alluded to in terms of not wrestling his match is how he felt about it. He felt like he didn't create enough opportunities. He didn't spend enough energy in some situations to get to the positions where he wanted to be in. He's got to work harder to stay out of that tie up and stand out in front of a guy, especially against a guy like Alex Marinelli, who's powerful and strong and wants to stay inside of the box where he likes to wrestle in, and Dave needs to force him out of those positions and force him into some different positions where maybe he's not as comfortable. But if you let him stay where he's good, he's going to give you trouble. So, the good thing was I felt like Dave walked off the mat feeling like he had a lot more to give in that match, and felt like he didn't spend, we can talk about spending, energy and walking off the mat and knowing that you did everything you could do to get your hand raised. I felt like Dave, felt like he left a little bit in the tank, so to speak. So, I think that gave him confidence moving forward that, in terms of what he needs to do to figure that situation out. So all in all, I think it was a good thing for him. Dave typically has always done his best wrestling at the end of the season in March. So I don't see any reason that would be different this year.
174 pounds, another one you got circled. Clay Lout ranked 16th in the country. Cody Hughes, as you said, coming off the loss to Andrew Berriesa. But what's Cody got to do to get back on the Schneid and pull off what would be on paper an upset?
Yeah, Lout's had a good season. He's made improvements for sure. But he's not the most dynamic guy. He is somewhat dangerous. He's got a good cradle. He's pinned some guys this year. So, it's about wrestling the positions that you want to wrestle in. And Cody needs to force where he wants to be, and he needs to stay out of, the position that Lot wants to be. He's got a good front headlock. He likes to chase down that leg and then looks to lock up a cradle there. And, he's done some good things. I've watched a little bit of video on him. Haven't had a chance to watch a ton of video on him, but I think it's a match that's winnable. On paper, they definitely are favored, but I have confidence in Cody and what he can do, and I think he can rise to the occasion, and we're going to need him to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, you mentioned that they did meet last year. Lot got the fall, so that's something to keep in the back of your mind too, Hokie Nation. 184 pounds, Hunter Bolin and Joey Mazzara. This is probably the one mismatch on paper that leans heavily the Hokies' way. Hunter Bolin wrestling well. Obviously, you said you would have liked to have seen him get his hands on Dupre again, but, as at rank number 2 in the country, everybody's fighting for that spot to challenge Zahid. So, talk about Hunter's progression throughout the course of the year again. He knows he's the man this year. This is, his spot coming off of the red shirt. And are you pleased with his performances thus far this season?
Yeah, absolutely. I love his approach right now. I love where he's at mentally. I love, where his confidence level is at. I think that he's got extraordinary belief in himself. He's just doing everything right, and he's made gains in every area. So he puts up points, and we're going to need him to put up points on Friday night. I mean, we're going to need some bonus points there for sure. You never know. I mean, this match could definitely come down to bonus points. So, that's what his challenge is going to be. He's got to go out there and he's got to score early and score often, and walk off that mat scoring as many team points as he possibly can.
So we moved to 197 pounds. Stan Smeltzer, ACC Wrestler of the Week. Let's just talk about that for a little bit. Go Smithfield Packers here, but good weekend for Stanley.
Yeah, Stan's, he made some improvements. He had a disappointing match at Central Michigan for sure. And I think, bounce back. And when he gets on his offense, he's got some good offense. And I think sometimes he just waits a little bit too long for whatever reason. And, even against Cornell, he stood around and he let that guy control him a little bit early in the match. And when he finally realized that he could open up and start attacking more and get into his legs, a lot of things changed, and he started pouring on the points. So that's what he needs to continue to do.
Yeah, Brandon Whitman is a tough out. If you look at him comparatively speaking, it's not a whole lot separating. I mean, your common opponents 5-6 versus 4-5. So they've wrestled the same type of opponents for the same type of outcomes. So really, again, how much do you think the home mat advantage is going to be helpful for Smeltzer here?
I don't think it ever hurts you. But, at the end of the day, it's 7 minutes of wrestling. It doesn't really have a huge bearing on the outcome, in my opinion. Whitman's wrestling well right now, though. I think he started the season off pretty slow, and I think he's shown some improvement and has wrestled pretty good at the Midlands. So, I think he's a different guy from where he was at the beginning of the season. But I think Stan is too. I think Stan's come a long way throughout the course of the season. So, it's gonna be a tough match for sure. It's gonna be a close match. It's gonna be a tight match. I think Stan has got to go out there and force Whitman to wrestle for 7 minutes. And if we can force him to wrestle for 7 minutes and force him to work, I think Stan can put himself in position to win this match for sure.
Moving to heavyweight, John Boris, a slight favorite over Andrew Gunning of Carolina. Heavyweight matches can sometimes be a one takedown, one mistake is all it takes. And what's John been doing to make sure that he's not necessarily in those one takedown matches, that he's winning matches that say, okay, I even if I do slip up, it's not going to cost us the match or it's not going to cost us the duel, because when they come down to heavyweight, a lot of blame goes on that guy at 285.
Well, you can't wait. If you're going to make a mistake, you make it early, and you give yourself time to correct it and score. John's got so many different ways that he can score points and win matches, and so many good attacks that he has from his feet as a heavyweight. It's just a matter of going out there and getting to his attacks, and he's getting his top game has improved, so he's winning matches on top in some cases. So I feel like John is one of the most improved guys on our team throughout the course of the season and from last season, from where he was last year, watching him at the Southern Scuffle and watching him compete behind Billy Miller last year. He's made some big gains. I think he's right there, and needs to continue to believe in himself, and I think he is. I think the more this season goes along, the more confidence John's gotten, and the better his results have gotten, and I expect that trend to continue.
There are different types of heavyweights, just like there are, of course, different types of wrestlers. But a heavyweight, sometimes you've got the bigger guys that kind of control the position game and look for a shrug or something like that. They're really not super great at leg attacks. And then you've got the active heavyweights, the athletes, the guys that are maybe coming up from like a 220 in high school, or coming up a couple weights and, being active. Who does John wrestle better against? The active heavyweight like he is, or the guy that tries to control the center and play a position game? I
think guys that are more like him, but he's done well against some big guys too. The Cornell guy, I think, weighed in at 270 some pounds. So, he's had success in both cases. Sometimes when he wrestles those bigger guys, he has a little bit more difficulty controlling the center of the mat and controlling the mat area, and forces him into taking maybe some shots that he doesn't necessarily want to take, taking some bad shots just out of fear of getting called for stalling or getting pushed out of bounds. So if there's one area that he needs to improve in before March, is being able to control center a little better, keeping his butt to the center, and making sure that he keeps the referee on his side against the guys that are 270, 280 plus. He can certainly wrestle with anybody. When it comes to wrestling positions and wrestling situations, I'll put my money on John against almost anybody in the country at heavyweight.
Once again, number 12, North Carolina, 8-1, coming into Castle on Friday, 7 p.m. on the ACC network, also streamed on ESPN.com against your third-ranked, unbeaten Hokies of Virginia Tech. Coach Roby, this is going to be a good one, man. I'm clearing my Friday for this one.
It's going to be fun. It's historic, right? It's the first wrestling match ever on the ACC network. So we need as many Hokie fans as possible to come out and be a part of this event. We need to pack Castle, and I'm confident that we'll have a great crowd, a great turnout. We're gonna have a heck of a wrestling match too. It's going to be entertaining as heck. So probably a great match to start with for the ACC network. I know we're excited about it. I know North Carolina is excited about it. So it's good stuff. It's good for the sport of wrestling. It's good for ACC wrestling, and hopefully it's a great night for Virginia Tech wrestling.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Go to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com/iTunes, or you can get the exclusive Android or iOS apps by going to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.